Greetings and welcome to another Inside Philadelphia City Council. Today we're joined by Councilwoman Cindy Bass. Thank you for joining us, Councilwoman.
Thank you for having me.
So in the news a lot lately has been AVI. It's been
Yes.
a lot of talk about it.
Yes.
But you guys had a study done. Talk about some of the things that came out of what you found.
Well, I think one of the important things about AVI and the information we just received is that there was a breakdown in terms of what would happen with each council district. So for me, it was helpful because it showed me what the options were in my district, but also I don't want to make decisions that are going to be difficult for my colleagues and for other citizens in Philadelphia. It looks like in my district with the $30,000 homestead that was proposed, we'd have about 75% of our residents having a decrease actually in their property taxes. But conversely, there could be some serious increases, we know, in other parts of the town, mainly Center City, South Philadelphia, Northern Liberties, those areas. So, we want to be cognizant about what's happening in all parts of Philadelphia, but it looks like for the Northwest, it looks pretty good.
Talk about why it was important for City Council to do this kind of investigation.
Sure.
After the mayor put this initiative forward.
Well, AVI is so important for a lot of different reasons. One of the stories that I tell all the time is when my husband and I bought our first house, when we first got married, we, moved in and a neighbor came over and he said, "Welcome to the neighborhood. Let me tell you about the neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you just missed it. Mr. So-and-so who lived up the street, he used to work for the BRT. We never had an increase in property taxes on this block." And so, that's kind of the way in many neighborhoods that taxes were levied. If you knew someone, if you were in a particular area, it was all very political and very connected, so to speak. And so the idea behind AVI is to make a system that's actually fair so that you don't have some group subsidizing another group. And that everybody should basically pay their fair share. What we don't want to do is we don't want to tax people out of their homes. And so I think that we want to be responsible about what's been done. In many instances, it's not the fault of the people who live in the neighborhoods. They were not a party to what some of the political mechanisms that were going on before. But we have to get a system that's fair and that's right and that's going to work for everyone.
Were you surprised when you got the report back that talked about how some people may even in fact get lower taxes?
I was somewhat surprised that, so for example, in my district, that the numbers would be as favorable, I guess I would say, for my district as they have been. I thought that we would have a good portion of our district go down, over 50%, but I didn't think that with the homestead exemption it would be around 75%. But that's, good news for a lot of people who have been overpaying for quite some time.
Now, in that, dealing with the tax situation, obviously, it gets to be quite controversial.
Yes.
In your mind, what do you think is fair for residents to be expected to do tax-wise? You have your people who say, "I don't want to pay any taxes ever." Then you have other people who say, part of being a resident of Philadelphia is paying taxes. So in that space, how do you determine what's fair and what's not fair?
Well, you want to look at the property value. And so you want to try to get a good sampling or a guesstimate of what, for this particular value, what a fair rate would be. So, for example, there were 4 properties, I believe it was, on Rittenhouse Square that had been assessed under the old system for $71,000. Now, I'd like to buy a property on Rittenhouse Square for $71,000. I'd like to buy one right today. But the fact of the matter is that obviously that's not the right fair market value. When they were reassessed, they came back, I believe, in the $4 million range each.
A little bit of a difference.
A little bit of a difference. And so the idea is that, you want to get people closer to where they will be. And we recognize that AVI is a system that's still in progress. It's still a work in progress, and we need to make sure that we get it right, we get it fair. We know that, for example, in my district, there are some properties that have been assessed that are identical. One property may be assessed for $100,000, one at $150,000. They may be twins in some instances that are identical. And why is that? So we still have some work to do. We still have some tweaking to be done, but I believe that we are headed down the right path to get away from the old system. We know the old system was broken. We know that it was unfair. We know that it was inequitable. It just didn't work for so many reasons. It was political. It should not have been. And so it's, these are growing pains, but this is progress. And I think once we get it right, people will buy in.
Now, one of the other issues that comes around with the taxing situation in this city deals with gentrification.
Yes.
And how some people's prices explode upwards.
Yes.
And then having to deal with that. People who've been in their neighborhoods 10, 20, sometimes 40, 50 years,
Yes.
now having to deal with possibly losing their home because they can't afford the taxes. How do you deal with that as a city council? One is someone who's representing a district, but then also trying to draft legislation that will benefit the whole city.
Right. Well, it's not as much of an issue in my district, but as an example, today we were in Kensington, and a part of Kensington that is clearly has been gentrified, and I was with Councilman Squilla, and he, showed me some of the properties that would be affected, and some of the residents who were from the neighborhood, were longtime residents, and who were greatly concerned about being taxed out of their homes. We want to make sure that whatever we do, we are not harming people. We want to make sure that people who have been in their neighborhoods can stay there. These are family homes. And Philadelphia, we know, is a city of neighborhoods and of families, and we don't want to disrupt that. That's who we are. That's what this city is. And so we have to really be cognizant about the decisions we make.
So what's next in the process?
Well, in the process next is determining what the rate's going to be. So we're somewhere between 1.25 and 1.41%. 1.25% would be the rate if we did no homestead or no relief for property owners. And if we do a $30,000 homestead and with some gentrification relief, it could be up to 1.41%. Obviously, the lower the rate, the better. And the homestead exemption would be very, very helpful for a lot of homeowners.
In this process, it seems like City Council has been very transparent, allowing people to comment on it, see
Yes.
everything that's going on.
Yes.
You've had public hearings on it. Why is that so important?
Well, it's important because people really want to know what's happening. And I think one of the things we did that actually was a disservice, not City Council, but the city administration itself and the folks who put together the new assessments. We mailed out assessments and we told folks, this is what your old assessment is and this is what your new assessment is. But what they really want to know is, what's my tax rate? What is my tax rate going to be? My property was assessed before at $20,000. Now it's assessed at $120,000. Am I going to have the same sort of incremental increase in my real estate taxes? And that's what people really want to know. And so I think we did them a disservice in not providing what the tax ranges could be. So, just as we gave them the old assessment and the new assessment, we could have given them the old tax rate of what they paid and what the range of the new, what the 1.25 to 1.41%, what that actually means to them, because that's what they really want to know. And like I said, it looks like a lot of the city is going to see a significant decrease. So that I think would have been much more helpful.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to add on AVI?
Just that I think that it's time to get it right. When we don't have a adequate tax base, we can't fund our schools. We can't pay for the services that people want and deserve. We can't keep our city clean. We can't offer options to do something about the crime, do something about our neighborhoods, do something about blight. These are all things that need to be addressed. And taxes, that's how we make it happen. It doesn't just come out of thin air. That's how we pay for all these things. And so where we have a tax system that works, it's going to benefit us all. And also we have to think about tax fairness in terms of collecting outstanding delinquent taxes. The city of Philadelphia is owed about $500 million. A lot of that money is uncollectible just because we haven't done anything about it in so long. So we have to get back on that as well.
How does that make you feel, coming into council and knowing that the city has all this back money that they didn't collect, and now part of this tax issue is the fact that, well, it's time we start getting more aggressive, and it seems like it's being taken out on residents who didn't do anything wrong.
Right. It's disturbing, it's disappointing, it feels, you wonder, how did we get in this situation in the very first place? How did we get here? Why is Philadelphia at the very bottom in terms of large cities in collection efforts? Why is that? And, while we're examining that and looking forward to, fixing the situation, we need to make sure that this never happens again, and that we, at the same time as doing AVI, that we are offering a plan to our citizens in terms of how we're going to fix, our problem. Just as I said, there are a lot of people who didn't have a party to the problems in their neighborhoods in terms of, the taxes being sort of fixed. we have to be responsible for what's happening, on our end. We have to make sure that people understand that we're trying to go out there and get that revenue that's owed to us so that we can get the tax rate that's as low as possible.
Another one of the things that you address as a council person that's important to you is public safety.
Yes.
Talk about some of the things that you're concerned about and some of the things that you're working on as far as the city goes in public safety.
Well, public safety is a big issue in Philadelphia, and even though right now the latest information we have is that violent crime is down in Philadelphia, which is a great thing. We need to be vigilant. We need to stay on top of it. We need to make sure that if there's anything that other cities are doing who are in similar situations, that we look at what they're doing as well. We've looked at cameras. I think that that'll go a long way in terms of having an adequate camera system to making sure that we address some of the issues we have around crime and public safety. But beyond that, supporting our police department, supporting their budget. One of the other things that we can do when you go back to taxes and delinquent taxes, as we were just talking about, is a lot of those properties are blighted. And so where you have blighted properties, you have crime. So it's all sort of interwoven, it's all intermixed. And so if we can do something about blight, we can address crime. If we can do something about, boarded up houses in neighborhoods that are tax delinquent, we can do something about usually drug activity, prostitution, all sorts of other reckless behavior that happens. These things are connected. So we had the opportunity to go out on a ride around with Commissioner Ramsey last year. And he was very helpful in helping us see things that we didn't know, but from a police perspective, things that we could be aware of, hot spots in our district and things of that nature. So we have a great working relationship with the police and going to continue that.
Has there been something that you've seen during a ride-along that kind of surprised you that you didn't know about as far as a police perspective and hearing officers describe something to you that you maybe didn't consider the first time around?
There were some situations that we were unaware of. There was a particular part of my district, which I won't name, which was having a significant level of drug activity far exceeding what we knew about. And so there have been multiple efforts there. It has enabled me to think about, as I spend capital dollars and as I do update my playgrounds and other things, that I want to target this particular area based on what the police information. Because like I said, if you have an organized neighborhood, if you have block captains, if you have a clean neighborhood, if you have a recreation center that has staff and has usage, then you're going to cut down on a lot of those activities that you don't want to see. And so it's enabled me to direct my capital dollars into those areas.
Now, you also have a lot of schools in your district, and recently we've seen something with in the news with kids getting out of hand after school hours, and that creating a problem having to be addressed. How do you deal with that as a council person? Obviously, that's got to be a concern for public safety and making sure that there are safe corridors for children to get to and from school. And then when something does happen, because when we were kids got into fights also, but making sure that it doesn't explode into big things and cause larger problems.
Well, we do have a great concern about our young people, what happens after school, because as you know, what happens after school really does carry over to the next day and the next day and the next day. And before you know it, it's a year-long fight, battle, argument, really for nothing. We're greatly concerned right now about the merger between Germantown High School and Martin Luther King High School, which the district, as you know, has made plans to close Germantown High School. And we're greatly, concerned about what's going to happen after school there. How do we get in front of those issues? I know that there are a number of places where we're going to do safe corridors, but it's a little more difficult for high school students and trying to figure those situations out. So, we made a number of arguments with the district in terms of alternatives that they could do instead of closing Germantown High School, what the alternatives would be, where they could go, how it would work, what other schools and resources we could bring into the Germantown building, because a lot of these sort of rivalries have gone on for decades. They're nothing new. And so, but unfortunately, the district decided to close Germantown High School and move those kids over to King. And so we're going to have, by all accounts, we're going to have a lot of activity that's going to be happening at King. We're going to need to direct even more resources there. And, I'm afraid that we're going to lose valuable academic time because of it.
How do you deal with that as a politician in a position, that's something that it seems like it can get so large and kind of out of control because although
Right.
that's in your district, obviously this is a citywide thing and it's being impacted basically
Yes.
because of decisions made by the state.
Yes.
So having all those factors come together at once, how do you deal with that as an individual council person?
Well, I think one of the things we're going to have to do, because we can't depend on the state, government can't do all of it. We can't depend on the state for the resources that I believe that they should provide to us here in Philadelphia. I think that they've been shorting us for years, and that's no secret that, but that being said, I think that we as a community have to get in there and make sure that this happens and that it happens right. We have to organize our parents. We have to organize our education professionals. We have to also talk to the police department. The 14th district covers that area as an example. We have to get all the providers into the neighborhood. I did ask Commissioner Ramsey during our city council budget hearings this week about the school closures and the effects that it will have. I have brought in Alny in my district, which is a big hub for young people coming from different schools. So even if it's not the King and Germantown situation, you'll have brought in Alny, which is a major hub for young people. You also have brought in Erie, which is in my district, another major hub for young people traveling to and fro throughout the city. And so we need for these places to be safe. And so there's going to need to be a number of stepped up efforts by the Philadelphia Police District and the school district police to ensure the safety of our young people.
How important is civic involvement in this, parents and the community getting involved with those efforts? It's
critical. We can't do anything without civic engagement. I think that we've had a drop in some of the engagement. I think that people, generally there's a couple of things going on. I think the economy, people are working 2-3 jobs just to keep the lights on, just to keep the rent paid, and we certainly understand that. But where we do have an opportunity, whether they're seniors or retired professionals, we need to get them engaged.
One of the other things that's been plaguing our young people in the city, obviously, is gun violence. The city council has tried to do things in the past around guns. The state has superseded it. You're recently part of an effort to try to do some more
Yes.
around guns. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. One of the things that we'd like to do is to restrict guns from public buildings. And so whether that's this building here in City Hall, when you come in, you have to go through the magnetometer and make sure that you don't have a gun or a weapon on you. And it's for safety's sake, for the elected officials who work in these buildings and for all the folks who work here. My thought is, why wouldn't we have that in our playgrounds where our most vulnerable citizens are, our children? And so the idea is that we won't have magnetometers where you have to walk through, but there will be an increased fine and penalty if you are caught with a weapon at one of our recreation centers. And I think that we want to spread the word. We want people to take it very, very seriously and let them know that this is not a place for foolishness. One of the things that I'd like to do, I'm the chair of the Parks and Recreation Committee for City Council, and one of the things I'd like to do is really place an emphasis on safety in all of our centers and find ways that we can make them as safe as possible. Nothing is more important than the safety and the education of our young people in Philadelphia.
What do you say to opponents who have brought up the idea of, I need to be able to defend family or my young people in my neighborhood, and one of the ways I can do this is by having a gun on me in these kinds of places. What do you say to folks who say that? There
is no reason to have a gun in Philadelphia in a playground or recreation center whatsoever, period.
Fair enough. Where are you now in the process of this, and how do you expect the vote to go?
Our bill has passed. So, I think that, we're trying to find ways to implement it now, and I think that we'll be fine.
Do you worry about the state coming in and stepping in on this and once again trying to take out from under Philadelphia the opportunity to legislate itself when it comes to guns? There
may be some state interference. We would hope to have their support. And now with Senator Toomey doing some work on the federal side, we're hopeful that maybe he would be considering being an advocate for what it is that we're trying to do. This is really about the safety of young people, and I'm sure that he would want to make sure that Philadelphia's young people have an opportunity to go to a safe, nurturing, caring environment like a playground or a recreation center.
So moving forward, Councilwoman, you have a lot on your plate, obviously, coming up. How do you prioritize, your office, and how do you decide these are the things that we're going to tackle, these are the things that we're going to take on in order to be most effective?
Well, we look at the issue of the day. And so if there's a hot button issue that we need to be on top of, that we hear from our constituents, one of the great things about representing the 8th District is you hear from your constituents. They call, they write, they email, they phone, they fax, and we appreciate all of that because we really want to hear from you. We want to hear what your thoughts are, what your concerns and questions are. People call me all the time. They leave a message. I call everyone back. I return every single phone call. So it's important for us to be able to hear from people and understand what it is that they would like for us to prioritize. That's normally our course of business. It doesn't matter as much what our agenda may be. We're here to be responsive, to hear what constituents have to say, and to really work for them. So we really do try to put that into everyday practical use in our office.
One of the other issues that you're dealing with, anyone who has universities in their district often has to deal with the idea of university is obviously a wonderful thing to have for the city, all the things that it does for a community, but there can also be a push and pull between the university and the residents. How do you deal with that in your district, and how do you deal with that overall?
Well, as you mentioned, we have LaSalle University in my district. It's a large institution. It's a major institution in my district, and we want to be supportive of LaSalle. And we also need LaSalle to be supportive of the community. And so we've had a number of conversations and negotiations with LaSalle about various issues and concerns and items. I would say the biggest issue that we have is, you have young people who want to do what young people would like to do. They like to listen to music, they like to have parties, they like to have friends over, they like to stay up late. And so in a normal sense, that all of those things are fine on a college campus. But the issue that we have is that, for the most part, you're in an urban neighborhood, and you have a lot of neighbors who are seniors, who have been in their homes for 20 or 30 or 40 years or more. And so we have to find the right balance. There has to be, a respect for the community, for the neighborhood, and recognizing that you're not sort of like at a Penn State where you're at a sort of a more rural campus away from anything except for the college itself. You're located within a city which has, people who have lived here and, being here for a short stint, there has to be respect given to the people who live in the community. So it's an issue. We're going to continue to work with LaSalle on that issue and hopefully come to some resolution, to try to fix the situation. It's not, LaSalle has been helpful, but we think that we can partner and do more.
You talked about the school issue earlier as far as grade school and high school issues in your district. And then you have institutions like LaSalle in your district. And across the city, we've seen partnerships between universities and some of the local schools in their area. Is there something like that in place for LaSalle? Is there any talk about having LaSalle engage in supporting some of these school efforts?
There's a lot of conversation between us and LaSalle, and one of the things, we partner on many different things, and so, but one of the things that we have not gotten to yet is that, and I think that we need to find ways to integrate more of LaSalle into the community, and that's certainly one of the ways that we could do so. So whether you talk about LaSalle, and I also have Temple Medical Campus in my district as well. And they do various service projects throughout the neighborhood, as does LaSalle. But having a more intensive effort in the schools would be very much needed and quite significant. So that's something that we're working on in our office.
What happens now, Germantown closing? What happens in the neighborhood surrounding Germantown?
Well, it's, we feel that it's going to have a devastating impact on the community. We're working hard to revitalize that commercial corridor. We've been working on it for quite some time. And so this closure comes, it's shocking, it's disturbing, it's something that really is a setback, but still we are moving forward with our plans to bring the commercial corridor forward. We are starting a Germantown Special Services District, which is a district in which the businesses all come together to keep the avenue clean and safe and well lit and maintained by someone, a professional in this instance. And so we're going to continue forward with those efforts and support those efforts. It's an effort that's similar to what's happening in Chestnut Hill and Mount Airy, as you know from their commercial corridors. They are cleaner and safe and well lit, and so we want to bring that energy right down Germantown Avenue into Germantown. And we think it could go a long way.
I grew up in that neighborhood, going to the market. I used to get my hair cut. I used to cut school to get my hair cut right across the street from Germantown High School. Are you worried about the loss being so sudden, and particularly in this fragile economic climate that we're in, that this kind of loss to the neighborhood could be such a shock that it kind of sends things going in the wrong direction quickly? It's
a problem. It's really a problem. So I had a business owner who told me at the announcement that Germantown was actually going to be closing, that she was closing. She said Germantown High School students were a majority of her business. They would come in every day. They would shop. She had a consignment shop. They would shop. The things were affordable. They would buy from her. And she was already struggling to survive. And she says, you know, I work, even though my business is open from 10 to 6, I work pretty much 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to keep this business open. And she just, you know, kind of threw up her hands in the air and said, you know, I've had enough. Enough is enough. And so when I hear things like that, it breaks my heart. And I know that she's not the only one, that Germantown High School students supported a lot of those businesses, whether it be the cheesesteak and hoagie shops, or, you know, the barber shops and beauty salons, or any of the shops along the avenue. So, you know, it's going to have an impact. And now we have to find a way to make sure that we reduce that impact as much as possible. You know, we're disappointed, but we are still moving forward. Germantown is the largest part of my district. It has a lot of energy. It has a lot of potential. I think as far as my district is concerned, I believe it's the part of the district that has the most potential with a small amount of investment. I think that if you just organize and add some resources to the table, you'll get a big bang for your buck. And so, you know, I'm excited about it still, but we've had an extra challenge now with Germantown High School closing.
In closing, Councilwoman, anything that you want folks to know about, anything you would wish to add?
Well, I would like to add that we are having a series called Coffee with the Councilwoman. We do those in a number of coffee shops throughout the 8th District, and we invite folks out to come and sit with me, talk to me, tell me about what your issue is. I'm in your neighborhood. It gives people a great opportunity to do that. So please call our office, 686-3424. We'd be happy to give you the dates of our upcoming Coffee with the Councilwoman. We did approximately, I think, 12 coffees last year. We're on track to do the same, if not more, this year. We also do town hall meetings on a regular basis. So we want people to know what's happening and to be engaged. And we encourage you to reach out to us and call our office so that you know what's happening in your neighborhood.
Can people engage with you on the web?
Absolutely. Absolutely. CindyBass.com.
Great site, CindyBass.com. Councilwoman, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Inside Philadelphia City Council. I'm your host, Al Butler. See you around the hall.